Okay, welcome to the Firefighters Chalkboard podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Jones, and today I've got a really special guest, a good friend of mine, Keith Drabick. Keith, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Keith Drabick, currently the fire chief for the village of East Palestine in Ohio.
All right. Um, Keith, give us a little bit of your background real quick before we get started.
Working on 40 years. I'm approaching 39 this summer in the emergency services. Started out as a junior, um, worked my way up through in volunteer departments in Western Pennsylvania. Got my EMS certifications up to my paramedic. And then I got a bright idea in 2009 that I wanted to go work career somewhere. So I traveled to the glorious Horry County, South Carolina, and became a paid fireman there and was there until about 3 years ago when I took the position here.
And you've got a really extensive background in training.
Yes, yeah. Early on in my career in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s, I got my instructor through Pennsylvania. And started teaching in Pennsylvania, specifically on the rescue side, vehicle rescue and special operations. And then when I came down to South Carolina, I did the same thing. Got my instructor, started helping teaching, and then it ended up where you're at now, Wayne, in the training academy. And I spent the last 5 years or so of my career down there in the training academy.
And I'm still waiting to try to get your office. I'm still waiting on the office.
I don't think Zach's going to give up the big office.
No, he likes the closet. Uh, so we talked about it earlier. We were pre-gaming and stuff, and so I'm just going to ask some questions, answer them how you want, and we'll see what kind of talking points and discussion we can get rolling from there.
Sure.
So our first one is, when did you know you were ready to become an instructor?
Man, that's a loaded question. I don't know if you ever know that you're truly ready to be an instructor. You just won't have that desire to share that knowledge, skills, and ability that you have, help others better themselves. My desire to do that, my fire chief, when in the early 90s, was an instructor for the state, and he was considered the father of rural water movement. Dow Watterson. He was an amazing instructor when it came to rural water movement and pump operations in general. So I kind of tagged along with him for classes he was teaching just to be a helping hand, hose jockey, pulling hose around, hooking trucks up for him.
Yeah.
And became very interested in it, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So he got me on the right path and helped me through that, got me the classes I needed, and I got signed on with Pennsylvania as a instructor, local level instructor, and started teaching with him. And then I just kind of branched out on my own on the vehicle rescue and special ops side because that's where my passion lied at the time.
Yeah. It's got kind of like a mirror type engine image. I mean, we are both definitely a product of somebody mentoring us and us wanting to take what we learned and keep sharing the passion for the job that that person put in us. I mean,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's a really big part of us being instructors. And you're absolutely right. You never really know when you're ready. You branch out and try. You can want to get that information, and a lot of people don't realize that we question ourselves on a daily basis of, are we doing good enough? Are we doing right by our students? What else can I do to be better?
Yeah,
And I mean, that's a constant struggle I have.
it is. It's a day-to-day struggle, and you have to find that feedback from those individuals that you're interacting with. So you have to have those open lines of communication, those open office doors for people to come in, and you have those off the book per se talks with them. How are things going? Did you get anything out of that? What can we improve on? What can we do better? I still do that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we are a product of multiple things. We're a product of what the people instilled in us, the drive we have in ourselves to be better,
Mhm.
and we're also a product of the feedback we get from our students. And that's a huge thing I try to do. I know when you were at the academy here, you were really, really big on that one-to-one. When you got 40 recruits, it's kind of hard to do the one-to-one, but we really still try to have that one-to-one with each person to see, am I connecting with you? If I'm not, what do I need to do to connect with you? Because we don't want one of them to get away. We want a good investment in every person we come across.
Sure.
So what do you think is the most important thing an instructor always needs to remember?
Where it came from.
Exactly.
I'd never forget. I always remember early on in my career coming up as a 14-year-old starting out, not being allowed to do stuff, and then gradually being allowed to do stuff, and then following in Dal's footsteps and starting to teach and gaining that knowledge. But what sticks in my head more than anything was when I started there at Horry County. My first day at the recruit academy, go to Bayboro, and Bayboro was still a staff station at that time. And I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of really good individuals there. Michael Dozier was assigned there. He was a big influence. Neil Bell, just that whole host of guys that were out there at that time, and they pushed us hard. And it was eye-opening to step into that role. And then you see how those individuals progress, and you kind of tailor your career to where you want to be. And you just have to always remember where you came from. And I think some of the most influential people in my career, that was one of their big things, is never forget where you came from. And I live by it. It's whether it's rolling hose on a scene or just sitting down and having coffee or getting up and scrubbing the toilets. There, just because I got some bars on my sleeves or some collar brass on, doesn't mean I can't get up and do the job that everybody else is doing.
Absolutely.
You remember where you came from.
Yeah, I mean, because like you talking about being a junior, I mean, it started the same way. And when we were kids starting this stuff out, we got super excited when they finally handed us a brush and say, "Hey, help us wash the truck." I mean, that was like the most amazing thing that oh man, we get to wash the fire truck.
Sure.
And now there's so many people that forgot how much passion that thing gave you, how excited you were just to be able to finally feel like you're a part of it. And I think that's something we need to strive to try to keep in each other on a daily basis. I mean, keep that passion and drive us into job.
Yeah.
Just like you said, do not forget where you come from. I'm that same little kid that couldn't drive that mom and dad dropped off at the firehouse. I've never went home. I mean, I visit there every now and again.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. It helps you along, knowing that where you came from, not forgetting that, understanding that washing that truck for the first time excited you. The first time you get to go into a fire, the first time you pack hose back on a truck, that stuff excited us at that point. And we have to remember that. And we still have to show that enthusiasm and that camaraderie for the new people coming in. They have to understand that I still get excited when we go do work. I get excited when we do good stuff at training. I get excited when we have a good conversation at the firehouse dinner table. I get really excited when we start having a good conversation at the table at the back of the bay, the front bumper of the truck. Keeping that passion alive and that drive to go forward and help people progress. We need to make sure that everything we do in our career is setting those below us up to take over for us one day. We're not all going to be around here forever.
No,
We've got to make sure that people know the right things to do and be able to fill our shoes at some point.
yeah. And it's like, and them getting that passion, that excitement, that drive is a product of what they see in us.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer in that. If I'm not passionate about the job I'm teaching you, how can I expect you ever to be passionate about it?
Right. And one of the most passionate people I've ever met about this job is Dark Prince.
Yes.
That he just 1,000% passionate, and we had more 2 o'clock in the morning conversations on the front of the pad, sitting on the bumper of the truck, talking about that enthusiasm and just random nonsense. But that enthusiasm just oozes from him, and he's just a fantastic mentor.
So take your chief hat off, put your instructor hat on real quick.
Sure.
What are you looking for in a student? What gets you super excited when you get that student that's the blueprint that you want to play?
Somebody who has that passion. somebody who wants to do the job because of the job, not because of the paycheck, not because it's a cool t-shirt and it gets me free coffee at the local convenience store, but the guy who wants to do the job for the job, the guy who has the passion from day one and is given 100% from the moment he walks through that door until he leaves. That's what you want. And I think anybody can get there, but you have to have the coaching and mentoring to get them there, show them that excitement.
Absolutely.
You're going to lose some just aren't going to have that passion. Some are going to wash out. It happens. This job isn't for everybody. But if you can get those ones that are so passionate and work with them and mold them, they go back and mold the other ones. They want everybody else to get up to that level that they're at, so they go back and help. And there's one in every class, at least one in every class. When there's that one guy that's there for the right reasons and has the passion and drive to do it, that's the one you got to find. That's the one you got to work with, because he's going to bring up the other ones that may not have all that drive, and hopefully he can instill that passion and drive in them while you're working with it. It's our job to do that as well, but you've got to have somebody in their ranks to do that, to help you get that passion going.
And just like you said, it's contagious.
Mm-hmm.
When you get that one recruit that's rocking on there really hard, I mean, it's contagious. Everybody else will want to be like him, especially whenever that one recruit sees the instructor, or the recruits see the instructors getting excited over how that one recruit's going, and not to have it confused with favoritism, because we're not going to have favoritism. I don't have favoritism to a person. I have favoritism to a culture, to a belief, to a drive. And when I see that, then I get excited, and I'm going to show the attention so I can give him everything I want, because he's begging for it right now. He's wanting everything I can get. And a lot of times whenever the recruits see the instructor starting to get amped up because the way this one guy is, how things are going, they start changing their mindset. Everybody else starts trying, because I want that attention from the instructors too. And it's not using it in a bad way. It's using it in a really good way.
Yeah. I had some really, really good stuff about that. When I started in that training academy down there were several of us that had that passion, and we were all for it. We screwed up one day. We come back late from lunch, and old Billy Floyd and them guys had us dig a hole big enough to fit a Volkswagen out behind the burn building.
It's still there.
Yeah, well, that's because when I ended up out there, I found one of them passionate people, and he still works there, but they ended up doing the same thing. They screwed up, but there was that, oh, hey, favoritism. It's not favoritism. It's they've got the passion, they're doing it. So when they screwed up, they had to dig the same hole to fit the Volkswagen in.
Yep.
And it took that favoritism thing out. You treat them all equally, but those ones that have the passion, you got to push them, keep on them, and they'll do the rest behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said a few minutes ago that this job's not for everybody.
Right.
Rightfully so. So I know the job's not for everybody. No, everybody is not made to do what we do. But how do you handle it when people aren't measuring up? When your students aren't measuring up, how do you feel is the right way to handle
it? Well, you have to talk to them. You have to have that one-on-one conversation. You're struggling. You're struggling. I know you're struggling. Why are you struggling? Is there something deep-seated that nobody knows about? Are they having problems? Are they having problems at home? Are they having financial problems? Whatever it may be. Are they just homesick? You get
we
people.
See that a lot.
Yeah. And I saw it a lot when I was there. You get those homesick people. But you have to sit down with them to find out what that problem is. And if you can correct that problem, great. Maybe they can progress on and they can get into the fire service and start to do that career. but you also have to be able to have that conversation with them of, hey, look, this just isn't working. You know it's not working. I know it's not working. Let's try and find you something else. Maybe they still want to be in this field per se, but maybe a dispatcher is a better thing. Maybe a
You
police
know,
officer is a better thing. Maybe
you know,
just riding an ambulance is a better thing.
yeah, BJ, we had a good conversation the other day with BJ, and BJ kind of brought up the same thing. And you know, you know exactly where I'm coming from when I say this. I don't know if some of the listeners ever will or not, because you've got to kind of live in the shoes of the monster we're in every day to truly understand when I say this. As an instructor, we're one thing, we are mentor to these people too, but we really go outside the boundaries a lot of times with a lot of our students. And, you know, one of the biggest things is to show them you care. Sometimes caring is being honest, whether they want to hear it or not, and try to say, you know, and BJ said it the best. He said, you know, if it's not for you, if this is not working out, I still got the same phone number I had. It's not going to change. I'll do anything I can do to help you. We've spent this much time together, whether you realize it or not. I've got some skin in the game to see you do better. Even if something happens and even you're not in the fire service anymore,
Mhm.
I've still got game in your life. I have still invested and tried to help mentor you. And no matter what, I still want to see you succeed as a person. My
And
phone's still on, my number's still the same. And that's
BJ's,
something we deal with a lot.
yeah, and he's absolutely correct. And him and I were out there at the same time,
Sure.
you know. So and BJ and I have very similar ways of doing things, same mentality, and he's correct. Once you know, we made those challenge coins out there, and I got the thumbprint on it because that's exactly what we do as instructors. There you go. We put our thumbprint on every one of them, whether they succeed or not. We have still touched or influenced them in one way or another, good or bad. There's those that just have that bad, and you know it happens. But there's nothing wrong with them reaching out after the fact to get that moral support, to get that advice that maybe you made that connection with them,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're in the department or not. You still have a duty as a human being, as a
Absolutely.
mentor, as an instructor. There's no reason you can't still help them just because they're not part of the brotherhood anymore. They're still a person looking for help, and everybody deserves help. You have to be able to reach out to them. It doesn't stop when they punch out. It doesn't stop if they leave and go somewhere else. You have affected them. You need to continue on with that. And it could just be nothing more than once a year, twice a year phone call. Hey, how are you doing? How are things going?
Yeah. And, you know, talking about that, the mentoring, because mentoring is huge in what we do. Instruction and education is a very small part of what we do. You know, we go in, we lecture our students on the curriculum of what needs to be covered, get them ready to test. We go and show them all the skills of what needs to be done. Such a large amount of time for what we do is truly spent in that coaching realm.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing more and more, and it's really sad to say it. I mean, but we see it. The kids, when I say kids, I mean it's people my kids' age.
Right.
But they don't have the coaching and mentor system that we come up with. And a lot of times we are the first people that truly show them whether we care whether they succeed or not. Because a lot of them they've never had that. I
Right.
mean, look at the world of technology, AI, Zoom, what we're doing right now. This is how a lot of these kids, you know, how they finished school during
Sure.
COVID, and
Yeah.
they didn't have baseball and football coaches, you know, down on them and trying to coach them and mentor them, or teachers in school a lot of times. So, and economically, mom and dads both have to work. I mean, and a lot of these people coming up, you know, mom and dad's both working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. There's not a whole lot of time for mentoring.
It's
Um,
that personal interaction
yep.
that's kind of gone to the wayside these days, and it's a shame. But you're right. Latchkey kids, electronics, you know, video games, online presence, whatever it may be. there's a huge difference in the way you and I were brought up to the way kids are brought up nowadays. And that
Yeah,
personal action, that time spent with family, that time doesn't happen like it did for us. So, this may be the first time they have that personal interaction with somebody in this manner. So, you have to change. We as instructors, we as mentors, we as coaches, um, we as fellow firemen, the other backstep guy, whatever it may be, that your senior man, we have to change sometimes how we do our approach to mentoring, coaching, education, inspiration. We may have to shift gears a little bit on how we do that. It's not the same as it used to be.
right.
So we have to adapt, and we have to be open to that change.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and it's being more and more prevalent.
Mhm.
The further it's going, the more prevalent it is. And we were talking the other night, and it's just that sense of accomplishment we get once we know we finally get them. We help them, and it's not for us. I mean, that's the one thing I will say, that becoming a full time instructor, because I helped teach before. I'd come help you guys whenever you
Yep,
were here, and I was still on the street.
sure.
And but becoming that full time instructor is that whole completely different mindset, because you're truly investing in everything that you
Yeah,
see every day, all these students. And I tried to do the best I could do when I would come and fill in or go help with a class somewhere or whatever. But it's a completely different mindset, because now it's a true ownership of, I have to do what I can to make sure these people are ready. I have to make sure not only ready, but make sure they succeed, because now they're here, and this is their livelihood. This is how they're taking care of their families. And I want to
yeah.
make sure I do the right job to help them, stay here. Um, so what do you think is the most important thing to instill in your students? I mean, we've kind of talked on the mentoring aspect and coaching and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Uh, Honesty, and broad honesty, not just honesty with being honest to your coworkers, being honest to your employer, but being honest to yourself. Understanding that you may not be as good at something as somebody else, and being able to admit that, and being able to ask for help, being honest with yourself that I need a little more assistance, I need a little more education. um, Making sure that they know that they're not going to come out of there perfect. None of them ever do.
no,
None have ever come out of there perfect. They need to go to the firehouses, they need the coaching, they need the mentoring, but they've got to be honest with themselves. So honesty to me is the number one thing that has to be instilled in them, not only with everybody else, but with themselves. And I think that's the biggest part, and that's where a lot of people have issues.
yeah. I would have to agree with you. I think honesty is really super important. And I would have to add one more, is humility.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
remember that you are always teachable.
Hmm.
And the time you think you're not, we really need to reevaluate what we're doing in life. I
Yep.
mean, you're 40 years into the game, you still learn something every day.
Every day.
And one thing that, being here in the capacity I am, I've got guys that's been here a week teaching me stuff, and I've been here 30 years.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
because and it's not always about the job. A lot of times, what we do is we're teaching people stuff about themselves, and the same things they're teaching us about ourselves and how we can change and how we can be better. So we can take a huge amount of stuff from the people we're actually teaching. They can teach us a lot too.
That just because you're an instructor doesn't mean that everything you're doing is the absolute gospel.
Absolutely.
You have to have that open mindedness to listen to what those other people are saying, um, and be able to adapt and learn something from them. I learned a lot from the people that I ran through recruit school, whether
Mhm.
it was technology based or just a different mindset of how to do something, or a different way to present it so that it's more understandable to them in these new generations that we have.
Oh yeah. I mean, we got a trade off right now. I'm starting a whole new podcast thing. I'm trying to learn this technology based stuff.
Yeah.
So I've got some of the kids helping me sometimes, talking me through stuff. I'm like, okay, teaching you how to use an axe. Teach me
Right.
how to use this computer. So
Exactly.
I think it's a good trade off.
Sure. Absolutely.
Um, so what are some of the future goals for Keith Drabick?
Oh man. Uh, I would say to get we're working on getting some more progression here at the in East Palestine. I'd like to eventually see some full-time staffing here on the fire side. Um, and definitely on the EMS side. We've progressed quite a bit on the EMS side. When I come up here, they were only staffing during the day. Now we're staffing around the clock for the EMS
Good,
side. So just overall department progression. And I got a great group of dedicated folks. I couldn't ask for a better group, and they're working hard right alongside me to get to that point, and we'll get there eventually.
good deal. So here comes the big one, and then we can
Uh-oh.
powwow afterwards, right? So when you finally decide to hang that helmet up,
Mhm.
what do you want your stories to be?
Uh, that I was fair. Um, you know, I was a hard instructor. I was. I did a lot of yelling, um, but I put my heart and soul into it. I've put my heart and soul into this entire career. I think that my stories are I was a fair individual, and I did right by my people. Um, if that's all I ever said about me is I was fair and I treated my people right and did right by them, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters.
Bravo. Well, there is no doubt that passion was in it when you were teaching. Depending on what shade of red you were at that moment,
Right?
showed how much passion that was going on. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And I still have that today. It's still going on here.
there's still some kids that have PTSD from the hero. I mean,
I'm sure there are. That's all right though. Uh,
for some reason, it's went down from class to class to class. Don't go to hero at lunch. You'll pay for it. Don't go to hero at lunch.
don't do the hero lunch. Oh man.
Oh, so have you got anything planned to go out, do any kind of speaking engagements or anything in the near
Uh
future?
yeah, I got one coming up. When is that? May? Yeah, I got one coming up in May, the Midwest Hazmat Conference. I'm doing a dual presentation with a representative from the federal EPA on our train derailment we had here. Um, and then we'll see what goes from there. You know, I mean, I still get calls to go do things here and there. But you know, it's and start branching out, doing some other stuff. I got some things in the works I'm working on, different
Good
classes
deal.
coming up with. So
Good
we'll get
deal.
out there.
Good deal. Um, so we're going to sit here and we're going to have Keith Dravick take a moment. I want you to preach the gospel to the students that are listening right now because, this platform is set up for us to have instructors as
Mhm.
guests. So it gives that students a really good idea of what instructors are looking for. That way they can get a better end product because the students is for what they're working for. If you can get in the instructor's head, you got to step up in the game, right?
Yep.
And in the same aspect, we are having some students as guests. And I mean, I'm not talking people in recruit school right now, but 2, 3 years on the job that are still actively learning. They're starting to take their leadership classes, things like that. So they can say what they're looking for in instructors. So it lets our instructors know what are our new people really looking for so we can change our delivery, how we do things,
Mhm.
maybe extra homework we have to do so we can do the best job possible delivering the information to them. So we're going to sit back. We got a lot of people listening, and we're going to let Keith just preach the gospel. Tell your students what to expect out of this career and how to get what they want.
Oh man, the first thing I would have to say, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Um, go in with an open mind. Listen to what the instructors are telling you. That doesn't mean that if you see something wrong or if you think there's a better way to do it, you shouldn't have that discussion. But don't go in there as a know-it-all. I don't care how much experience you had. I had lots of experience when I come down there and started through recruit school. And I took my own advice. I kept my mouth shut, my ears open, did what I was told. And that has to carry on. Nobody's too good to scrub a toilet. Nobody's too good to make a pot of coffee. Whether you drink coffee or not is completely irrelevant. There are guys in the firehouse that have been doing this job for a while that drink coffee. You have to understand, as the new guy coming in, whether it's just coming in recruit school, going out for your mentorship, going out for your first shift at your new assignment, you're the new guy. You have to prove yourself. Part of that is being able to perform your skills for that job. But the other part is knowing when you don't know enough and ask. Have that ability to open up, humble yourself, have that humility and that honesty, and ask for help. The guys at the firehouse will help you. They are itching to help you. Sometimes you have to reach out and ask. They want to see how much you want to learn. They want to see how motivated you are. Don't sit down. There's always something to do. There's always a broom to push. There's always a book to read. There's always a truck to go out and study. You should know everything about that piece of apparatus you're assigned to, where everything is, how everything works. You have to get out there and do it. If you get out there and do it, they will come out and join you. Some of the best training at the firehouse is done because a probie or a new guy or even a senior man or an officer goes out and starts to do something to better themselves, and it gets everybody else involved, and you start working as a team. Some of the best training I had was 2, 3 in the morning, sitting on that front bumper, and you ask a question about a piece of equipment on the truck because you don't quite understand it, and you start moving things around, and then the next thing you know, the guys in the bunk room hear it, and they come out and they start doing it. You're there for 24 hours. Sleeping's great. If you get a chance, that's fine, but use your time wisely. The guys will be more than happy to stay up and help you. Make yourself available. Have that honesty, have that humility. Be open with them. Look, I walk in the door, introduce yourself. I've got about 20 weeks experience, or I've got 20 years. This is what I'm used to. This is what I'm familiar with. I'm learning the new ways here. The job is the job. The intricacy of each department is slightly different, and how each department works and what each place wants. You have to find that. It's no different than when I left down there and came up here and took a position as a fire chief. I sat in the back of the room for the first month because I need to learn how they operate and how things work. I'm the new guy. I'm making the coffee. I'm scrubbing the toilets. I'm mopping the floor. Don't be ashamed to be the new guy. Open up to
solid.
people. Ask for help. So that's my gospel.
That's solid. I mean, that's a career worth right there. That is a career's worth assignment right there.
Yep.
Been a many a nights of doing drills just because somebody asked a question, and we ended up dumping the whole truck and
Sure.
had fun the whole time we were doing it.
Yeah. And everybody that's participating is learning something, or they're honing their skill. They're making themselves better. Maybe we're out pulling lines and, hey, we just figured out a new way to pull this line, or we figured out a way to cut 10 or 15 seconds off of getting this line to the front door. That's huge. Never stop learning.
All right. Well, Keith, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Really great, good interview. Good catching up with you.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to reach out to you, because I mean, I know you've learned a lot about hazmat the last little bit.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
But if anybody wants to reach out to you to be able to, pick your brain on some stuff, different things like that, give them a way to get a hold of you.
Well, you can reach me by phone at 440-915-2838. Or you can send me an email, and this is kind of long, so pay attention. K.A.Drabick at eastpalestine-oh.gov. Got any questions, please feel free to reach out. Talk to me. If you're up in the area, stop by and visit.
All right, Keith, once again, thank you for being on tonight. And everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. And just remember, keep learning.